bigger challenge is Myanmar. Pakistan and Afghanistan are a known challenge. That's a rather unknown.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. And the people trust us. The important thing is people trust us, and people don't trust Chinese.
Mm.
And what we need to realize in Myanmar is this. I mean, the military is not the solution. Okay, but it is not the problem either.
Mm.
At every point of time, the deep state torpedoed the whole peace process. Because if peace happens between India and Pakistan, the deep state has no job. Bajwa and Imran Khan would have gone down in the history of Pakistan as having given Kashmir away. See, the moment Pakistan has some peace with us, America will get into the game.
Mm.
Which China doesn't want to happen.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. Today I'm once again privileged to be joined by Lieutenant Gen Ravi Shankar, who retired from the Indian Army as the Director General of the Artillery and has a very interesting habit of writing about various different issues happening. And we've taken his views multiple times on this very channel and many others. His views are very sought about and actually quite accurate when you look back. So we're going to give you a small example of something that we discussed some time back and how it is actually coming through. Thank you, sir, for joining me today. And I await your views for the future as well.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for calling me over once again. It's a pleasure to be here. I must confess that, writing clarifies my mind. It's only when I write that I think and I, put issues up, and then I get the clarity of what an issue is, and I do my research, and that's what gives me strength to talk to all of you. I'm glad you found it interesting. Let's start on
right, sir.
Where we are.
So the topic that we have chosen for today is India and its neighbors, mainly how the Chinese are putting India's wings on fire. I really like this term that we've come up with, wings on fire, and that is exactly the situation that we see across.
Yeah, our wings are on fire. We have to realize that with Myanmar and in a state of nebulous flux, and Pakistan and Afghanistan combined in disarray.
Yes.
So our wings are really on fire.
Absolutely, sir. So, what is the Chinese plan by doing something like this? Is it basic instability, or what do you actually think about this whole concept of wings on fire?
At the outset, I must say that I don't think the Chinese are planning it. Right? I don't think they're planning it. But what I think is they're taking advantage of the situation. Okay. The way Pakistan is going and way Afghanistan going was quite predictable, right? But one didn't expect it to slide so fast. We knew it was going down, but it's going rather fast. And there's a whole lot of instability which is coming up. Seemingly, the Afghanistan-Pakistan border is not as unstable, at this point of time. But the forecast is not great. On the other hand, Myanmar was pretty stable. It was just 3-4 months back when our Chief of Army Staff and the External Affairs Secretary had visited the country and came up with some ideas. I don't know, sorted things out, all that. But suddenly it's gone into a tailspin. And in this tailspin, the Chinese have jumped into it, right? Lock, stock, and barrel. And that, I think, has put us at a bit of a disadvantage at this point of time. We don't know how it goes. If we play it smart, things will come out. And of course, then the other regional neighbors are there where, the Chinese are making hay when the sun shines. So that's the way things are. And I had written an article, Insidious Moves of China, some time back. And in that, I had sort of predicted that They're going to rake up issues in Bhutan. They're going to rake up issues. They are already raked up issues in Nepal. Pakistan, of course, was always there, and Myanmar was on the cards.
Mm.
It's only that they've taken advantage of the situation. So that's where we are.
What you're saying is they're being opportunistic about what is happening
Yeah,
around.
they've been opportunistic totally. In fact, around that time, they made a lot of foray into Bangladesh also.
Mm.
And while Bangladesh has not gone, sliding down, we've been able to stabilize the situation or equation with Bangladesh. So that is okay as of now.
So,
But Nepal also politically we've been able to pull back a few things because of the inherent instability of Nepalese politics. But to me, the bigger danger is, I wouldn't say the bigger problem or the bigger challenge, not the danger. The bigger challenge is Myanmar. Pakistan and Afghanistan are a known challenge. That's a rather unknown.
yeah.
So that's where we are. We can discuss each one if you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to take the first wing first, sir, which is our favorite, which is Pakistan, and
Yeah.
it's not much of a danger as per what you're saying.
Yeah.
What we see happening in Pakistan is Mr. U-turn back at its game. I mean, this is something
Yeah.
that we had seen before, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to put up some clips right here, which will show us this is something that we predicted, and the so-called deep state in Pakistan will not allow this thing to happen.
But having said that, okay, they've given a peace offering, and the chief and everyone has said everything. But let's look back. We've had 4 instances where we went and tried to make peace with them
Mm.
very categorically. The first was our Prime Minister Vajpayee's bus trip, right, to Islamabad, turned into Kargil. Then Musharraf came to Agra post Kargil and upstaged the whole thing by his breakfast conference and talking all brashly. Of course, later he regretted it, not in words but in deed. Then the 2004-5 that peace plan, which was shot down by the peace plan between Musharraf and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, which broke down with time. And then, of course, Prime Minister Modi's visit to Nawaz Sharif's granddaughter's wedding, if you remember. It was an impromptu visit and outreach. These four, and that also led nowhere. I mean, everything was followed by why? I mean, that's the question.
Mm.
Deep state. At every point of time, the deep state, uh, torpedoed the whole peace process. Because if peace happens between India and Pakistan, the deep state has no job.
Mm.
So that is important to understand. So the first thorn or the first question is the deep state on board?
If I may just
Yeah.
take half a minute, sir, it's such a
Yeah,
funny quote
please.
that came out today. It says that the Commerce Minister of Pakistan wrote to the Prime Minister of Pakistan saying that we would not be able to adhere to your orders. And the funny thing is that Imran Khan wrote to himself. So it's a paradox of a situation wherein Mr. U-turn is back at it. We've seen him pulling out the 370 card once again, and this is where this is coming from. So, what is your opinion about the fire that is building up in Pakistan as well?
As far as Imran Khan is concerned, I'm reminded of a old movie long back. There was a comic actor called Jerry Lewis. Right, Jerry Lewis was a tremendously comic actor. I remember seeing one of his movies in which the first shot in the movie is you see a chessboard with the black side and the white side, and two gloved players playing, one with a white glove and one with a black glove, moving the pawns on the chessboard. And as the movie pans out, you see Jerry Lewis with one hand, with the black glove and one hand with the white glove, and he's moving the chessboard himself. And that's what is happening in Pakistan also. It's not as if the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
Mm.
They know it. Let's analyze it a bit. Let me analyze it. It's apart from the fact that there's an internal turnaround and dissonance. What is in question is it's not a political pressure on Pakistan. It's come out. The PDM is in disarray. It's almost broken. In 24 hours, what has happened? It's a deep state, very clear. I mean, I think internally the co-commanders or someone high up in the armed forces circle must have laid down the thing that look, we can't support this. The moment you do that, you diluted everything, and I mean, they'll Bajwa and Imran Khan would have gone down in the history of Pakistan as having given Kashmir away. One Niazi gave away Bangladesh, the other Niazi gives away, Kashmir. So I don't think this man suddenly must have been reminded of that, and that's how it is, right? And that puts Pakistan back into a hole. Afghanistan, no trade. China. Today I read a article in Malaysia Sun, which says all the road, projects, including CPEC, uh, have been funded only 30% this year, and they've just stopped. Okay, so that's in shambles. So China, that's where it is. Though Dawn says that the chap Asad Umar, who's a minister in Pakistan government, says that they're going to looking forward to revive CPEC when there was a special economic zone being inaugurated, but I don't think it's going anywhere. UAE and Gulf, it is zero there. I mean, it's tending to zero. And you will see that the Pakistani rupee has gone stronger. The rupee has gone stronger because of large inward remittances. Large inward remittances from the Gulf and everything means that they're cleaning up there. It's not as if they're getting extra money there, right? So, and they don't now. They've cut off this trade with India also. Where will they go? And inflation is inflation. It's a double digit. It's going on. So, well, plus the fact that Afghanistan is not improving. If you read the Afghanistan, there's no news from Afghanistan, but I keep getting some input or the other from someone or the other. Every day there are people getting killed. Every day there are issues happening. Now there's a political mood where all the non-Taliban political guys are getting together. So it's not a city of joy exactly for Pakistan. So that's not a happy state to be in.
Mm.
Right. So that's where it is. I don't see much hope there.
So you mentioned about the core commanders, and that is very
Yeah.
interesting that you should say that. Um, we all know that the core commanders are very powerful. As a matter of fact, they do control most of the administration of the areas that they are in. And you mentioned that the core commanders would have kind of reminded gently to Imran Khan and possibly to Bajwa as well that this is not okay. Don't you see that
I don't know.
this creates
Yeah.
some sort of a rift within the Pakistani army, which has not been evident before, not been seen before?
See, the fact is that a rift happened when General Bajwa got the extension. There were 2, 3 guys sidelined and all that. So they would be very conscious of the fact that this whole story will weaken their hold on the system, right? And they are backseat players, right? They're not in the front seat. They're backseat drivers. Their security and their everything, it depends on this issue being kept alive. See, a fundamental thing is that if the Pakistani army is taken out of the equation or they made weak or out of the equation, their existence is, comes under question.
Mm.
then they've lost it. Pakistan will be a different state altogether. So they'll not let it happen. They'll not let peace happen. You see, it's always said that a strong military ruler in Pakistan and a strong uh, political leader in India are the right recipe for peace. We have that right recipe this side. That side, it's not so. That is why it can't happen, right? And it will not happen. So peace with Pakistan is a chimera. We have to adjust to the fact that we will have to deal with a Pakistan which is continually failing, toxic, and an Afghanistan which is going to go from bad to worse.
Mm.
Right? And the Chinese and the Americans will play their own games, and it's not going to be an easy situation for us.
So this is basically landing up on our doorstep. Is that?
Yeah, it will land upon our doorstep here.
So how does, sorry.
Notwithstanding the fact that we've got some entry into Afghanistan, because now people say, okay, you are also part of the deal there and all that.
Mm.
But, I don't see much happening in the right direction, even if the Americans leave by 1st May. This Afghanistan going into chaos is quite imminent.
Mm.
Yeah.
What I want to ask you is, how is the deep state actually connected with China today? Is it just because of their capability, if I may use that word, of making money through what the Chinese are giving through, or is there actually a string which is being pulled across?
See, the deep state is connected with China, through Pakistan, the state of Pakistan. Pakistan, throughout its history, has had a crutch. USA, right? And then the Gulf. And now it's China.
Mm.
They need someone to support them. Okay, today it's China. Tomorrow it could be anyone else. They'll ditch China if needed. So these are all transitory, right? So this will continue. And of course, I'm sure there's a lot of interest happening between the Pakistan army and the Chinese army also. Because it's not come out, but I'm sure something will come out in due course.
So you see a connection between the deep state and the Chinese?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Okay, so what you're trying to say is it's not in the Chinese interest to have India and Pakistan kind of come to a place. I won't use the word peace because that's far and.
See, let's look at it from a different perspective, from our Indian perspective. Peace with Pakistan is, for us, is precise. I mean, you leave everything else out. Can you accept Chinese presence or CPC in Kashmir? You can't. So if you can't accept that, you can't have peace with Pakistan. Right? One of the first preconditions logically should be Chinese should be out of the game there. They'll never go out. So if they never go out, how can you have peace? So it will be some nebulous peace, LOC mein firing na karo, ye karo, chota mota, that's it. Chini come type. Nothing more. Let's not. It will be transactional and transitory.
I think that establishes the connection between the deep state and the Chinese.
It will not happen.
Yeah, it's against China's interest to have any sort of peace, which may result in being stupid and losing Kashmir.
See, the moment Pakistan has some peace with us, America will get into the game, which China doesn't want to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't think this will continue. These problems will continue.
So much happens in Pakistan that one doesn't want to move away from it. So I'm going to just keep up with the last question. And this may not be related to China altogether. There was a huge controversy that occurred in Pakistan with regards their being omitted from the Climate Control Committee. They were pretty surprised. We were not. But how do you see this going across? And what was the idea to keep these guys away from it?
See, Pakistan is going to be affected by climate change is beyond doubt, right? Why John Kerry is not going to Pakistan? Only John Kerry can answer.
Mm.
There's some things come out. We're going to places where maximum climate change is taking place. We're going to place where people have a measure of overturning the impact X, Y, Z. But I think it's a deliberate move by USA not to go to Pakistan. Maybe they're sending a message, look, you don't matter, or you the fact that they can't push Pakistan into accepting that. What my guess is that even the Americans are playing a waiting game with Pakistan. They're playing Pakistan at this point of time. They'll see which way the dice will roll in a few months and then take the plunge.
That's interesting.
See, Pakistan is a joker in the pack.
Mm.
कहीं भी इस्तेमाल कर लो उसको, कोई भी इस्तेमाल कर ले, right? So, but this joker has a mind of its own, so it's dangerous. Yeah,
that's true, sir. So let's move over to the other side, which is the Eastern Front, if I may put it that way. Is again the Myanmar fire, which is up. Of course, at an outset, what people can realize that the issues in Myanmar may create a situation of refugees, which is, yes, that's a big concern. It's human lives at the end of it. Apart from that, it creates a lot of instability within the region of the Northeast, wherein India was using the Myanmar army to keep a control over certain, non-national segments within that area. How do you see the relationship moving forward, considering the fact that the world is just looked at sanctions as usual, which aren't going to have much of an effect? How do you see us doing something about it?
Yeah. First and foremost, what we have to understand is, if you take a map of the Indo-Pacific and look at it, you'll see Myanmar at the center.
Mm.
So whichever way you look at it, Myanmar will have a very important role in the Indo-Pacific strategy, whether it's China's or India's or the Quad or America, wherever. So that is something which many people are not focusing on.
Mm.
Myanmar has got borders with ASEAN, it's got borders with China and India. So it's a critical country. Okay. And we need to understand this very well. So, from an Indian perspective, there are more interests than that refugee problem and insurgency. Northeast ethnicity is trans-border, whether you call it Nagas both sides of Indo-Myanmar border, whether the Kukis and the Chins and the Mizos and the Mars there, these are also trans-border nationalities. Ethnicities, not nationalities, ethnicities. So and that border is quite open if you've been there. It's not right. Then you're looking at Myanmar, of course, for control of the insurgencies there. The next thing is you're looking at look east and the trilateral highway, which is to go India, Myanmar, Bangladesh was also in the deal recently onto Thailand as part of the look east, policy. The then thing is that you were also invested very heavily into the Kaladan multimodal port. From Diamond Harbour to Kaladan or the Sitwe port, direct. It's just about 400 kilometers. It would have given you a third line of communication to the northeast, right to Mizoram, because it's not only through the Siliguri corridor. You were also contemplating one through Bangladesh, and this is the third one. So it opens up the northeast. Now that is under danger right now. Then Myanmar was the only country in Asia in which you had a direct connect with. That's the thing. Then, of course, the Indo-Pacific and the Quad strategy is at risk. Now, then you have to look at the Chinese interests. The Chinese and the China Myanmar economic corridor. They're looking at the Kyakapyu deep water port, and they're looking at the Nitsone Dam. All this, China, so and China has been very pragmatic. They've supported the military. It didn't matter what the right or wrong was. They've said it's the internal affairs of thing, and they've fully supported the military. It is us who are, we are thinking which way to jump. So we have a major issue with Myanmar, where we have to see what do you want to do. So far we've done a wait and watch policy, and of course, if China gets ahead and gets into the situation, controls the situation in Myanmar, and gets ahead, that will be a threat from that side also. They can also stir up all the insurgencies. After all, Mr. Paresh Barua of Alpha and some of these NSCN guys have been going to, reports are keep coming that they're going to Yunnan province of China. And it said that Paresh Barua is living there. So I don't know. So we have a problem. I mean, we have to be very pragmatic with Myanmar. The other thing is, whom do you support? Do you support the democracy movement? Do you support the people or the military? We've had good equation with the military.
Mm.
It's not a bad equation we've had. We had a reasonably good equation with the democratic NLD, but the NLD has been leaning towards China, and they're not been very kind with the Rohingya Muslims and all that. They're not this thing. And the people trust us. The important thing is people trust us, and people don't trust Chinese.
Mm.
And what we need to realize in Myanmar is this. I mean, the military is not the solution, okay? But it is not the problem either.
Mm.
The military has to be part of the solution, okay? The democracy is also not the solution, it is part of the problem. The democratic forces are also part of the problem, it is not the solution.
Right.
So there is no clear cut solution in Myanmar that we should support the military or we should support the dynamic democracy. We should support the people. How we support the people is our challenge. It's a very tough situation,
Yes.
right? Yeah, well, West has said sanctions and all that. That's okay, but Russia has jumped into the fray in a big way. Russia is supporting the military junta. You can't wish away the military. Remember that in the history of Myanmar, the military has always played a role,
Yes.
right? And the military has gone against the communists who are supported by China. It has gone against the rebel people who are against China. So they're not overtly towards China either. If anything, in the recent past, the military has not been as much close to China as the NLD has been. So it's a very nebulous situation, and we have to play it smart. It's an opportunity for us. Uh, this point of time, yeah, we are waiting and watching, but at the right time, we should take the lead in the reconciliation and stabilization process. Do we have the capacity to do that? Do we have the willingness to do that? We have to put your foot in your mouth and move ahead, or rather, put the money on the table. And in fact, I feel we are in the best position to bring out reconciliation because the people are with us.
Mm.
Yeah.
So do you think it's the right game to play right now with regards to wait and watch sort of a thing?
Yeah, we don't have a choice. What will you do?
Mm.
You already supported the military in some manner. Okay, when our DA went and attended their uh, military parade there,
Mm.
their Army Day parade, and more than that, we've also said we want democratic institutions to be restituted at the earliest. All that we have said, but And we are also accepting refugees. Okay, because there are issues with refugees, which right. And some refugees who are politically inconvenient, we are playing it that way. I mean, it doesn't come out in the media, but I'm sure we are discerning about which refugee to accept and not accept either. So we are playing it both sides. But I would like to see our government taking a proactive role to come and bring about reconciliation.
Mm.
Look, China is very clearly with the army, but it's also very clear that the army will not get away with it completely. Okay, and China, the people are not with China there. Okay, in any post problematic stabilized situation, the army and the democratic forces will have a role to play. And for that, the people have to support both.
Mm.
And there has to be a reconciliation which has to be brought about. Who else can better than India and the ASEAN to do it? The West is, barring sanctions, they can do nothing much. And sanctions won't work beyond a point.
Yes.
Right? So we have to switch from strategic ambiguity, which we are now exhibiting, to all-round acceptability and proactive, action to bring reconciliation. I would say we should get into a strategic acceptability mode. Because I feel today the Myanmar situation is worse than the Pakistan situation.
Yes. The entire Northeast comes into threat. I agree with you, sir.
Yeah, a whole lot of instability will come in.
Yes.
I mean, it is not. It's not simple.
Of course,
It's complicated.
Of course, most of the people like to talk about Pakistan, so nobody is really talking about the issues in Myanmar. But I think I wanted to bring it across to see and to try and start a dialogue with regard.
See, what happens is if the Chinese succeed in Myanmar, they're going to be in the Bay of Bengal.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and that's just about 400-500 kilometers from the Chinese border on the old Lido Road.
Mm.
Because it's a tough road, it's in jungles, and it's in but the Chinese will buy all these incidents off.
Yeah.
And what happens if that fellow is going to be, he's got a naval presence in Bay of Bengal, just 300-400 kilometers north of your Andaman group of islands. You're in trouble. Your entire Indo-Pacific story will take a backflip. Not us, the Quad.
Yeah.
It will not be a free and open Indo-Pacific. And then it solves the Malacca dilemma of China.
Mm.
They got a clean overland route. They're looking at a gas pipeline there. They're looking at a railway track. They're looking at a high-speed road network. Now, all that, if it comes through, you're outflanked. Your complete Himalayan defenses are outflanked from that side. It's a major problem.
Yes.
Right? After this, I'll give you my article which I had written on this, in which I've alluded to this. Now, you just look at it. If you have Myanmar in trouble, Pakistan anyway in trouble, and Nepal and some problem in Bhutan, you are in trouble all round again back. So we have to be very careful. The direct threat has receded.
Mm.
The indirect threat and the insidious threat has now opening up. Right? And that is what we have to be careful about. Right? There's also some talk of talks between Bhutan and China on the border issue.
Mm.
So let's see where it goes.
A lot of interference within our neighborhood.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity in our neighborhood.
Yes.
So which is something which we have to be cognizant of and careful about.
As a matter of fact, we spoke about it when we talked about multi-domain warfare. This looks like exactly that. It looks like India.
Yeah, it'll happen. It'll happen. Look, when something the direct doesn't work, the indirect will start working.
Mm.
this pressure will always be on India. If all this something happens, something will crop up in Sri Lanka. I mean, let's not wish it away.
So,
But Sri Lanka also, yeah.
I basically I will want you to actually just spend a minute about Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal post this one question. You know, one thought that comes to mind is what Chinese are trying to do with India is to destabilize its side so that keep India busy with all this stuff and it'll be, fair game for its own self. My question is, why can't we flip the situation across towards the other side? If we are able to actually push through some sort of a settlement of sorts in Afghanistan. And whatever said and done, the Taliban is not going to spare the Pakistan. Even if it's the Taliban or the government, which is the regular government, they have their issues with the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. Taliban is going to claim the entire NFWP, and the regular government is going to dispute the Durand line. That puts a lot of pressure on the Chinese CPEC designs and dreams. They have put in a lot of money, and I don't think they're just going to pack up their bags and leave one fine day. Do you think there is a possibility for India to create a certain amount of destabilization of their investments in Pak-Afghan region to create similar situations for the Chinese?
Look, if you do nothing, it will descend into chaos there, which is imminent. And when chaos of that kind happens, you can't keep having your road connectivity schemes going on. In any case, already Pakistan is in dire straits. I've just told you the article which I read, and I don't think CPC is going. The name is there, but I don't think it will give the kind of strategic outcomes which China desires. As far as Afghanistan is concerned, look, we are on the edge of a precipice. Let us see where it goes. We are going into the unknown. So maybe month later, some idea we'll get as to what's happening in Afghanistan. Let me assure you, I mean, Afghanistan situation is not common. The only thing, news is not coming out, right? But every day there's some action happening there. Every week, second, something or the other is happening. And no one is going to. It will go back to the old days of Afghanistan. So that's my view, right? No one is going to let go. And without an outside impetus or a strong personality within, Afghanistan won't stabilize. If there's no stability in Afghanistan, there's no stability in Pakistan. So if both these areas are unstable, we will have our problems, but China will not make great headway either. That is for sure. Yeah, that's why they will try more in Nepal and Myanmar and this belt. I mean, at the end of the day, there are two issues in this area. One, China has to take its own desires forward or its own aims forward and objectives forward for world domination, right? CPC, outreach, BRI, debt trap, control, all that. That's a positive way of looking at it for them. The other way of looking at it is it has to keep India down. Whatever it has to do to keep India down, it will. So let us see where it goes.
Interesting. I think the next month is something that we will see where the Chinese investment is actually going down the tube, or they will have to.
Look, you will never know whether it's going down the tube or not. You will, right? It's not going to be a one-day affair.
Yes.
Because they're not going to give up. And they'll never say that it has gone down because, right? Yeah. They will always say that it might slow down, we'll revive it, and this and that, and all that. But on ground, we know what's happening.
That is where I see an opportunity. So,
yeah.
I'd like you to spend just a minute about, Bhutan. You've already mentioned that there is some talk. So at the moment, the situation is pretty fluid. It's not really of any consequence that we can actually discuss. Having said that, Nepal, which is basically in the middle of a political turmoil, like you to throw a little light as to where do the Chinese stand in that segment.
See, Chinese are getting a taste of democracy in Nepal, if I may put it, communist democracy, right? The government in Nepal, at the end of the day, consists of all kinds of varieties of shades of communists, and they've fallen apart. And there's been their history. It's not going to come together overnight.
Mm.
Everyone is playing their game there. There are too many moving parts in Nepal, right? So, uh, see, 3-4 months back, when they instigated the incident of Lipu Lake and Kalapani, right, things were hunky dory for China there. Okay, but since then things have done a black flip.
Mm.
Though it is said that the Chinese ambassador in Nepal has got a lot of clout and all that, but all that clout and all has not transformed into anything substantive in Nepal. Okay, so Nepal has gone into a bit of a cold storage. Let us see again. We are all in the wait and watch mode. Nepal, because when Nepal went quiet, Bangladesh went up. When Bangladesh went down, Sri Lanka came up. When Sri Lanka went down, Pakistan again took its tail up. When Pakistan was going, okay, you suddenly say Myanmar has gone awry. So our neighborhood is going to keep us busy.
Yes.
Forget about going to South China Sea and all these far of the Indian Ocean and all. Neighbors first.
That is very, very precise. Neighborhood first.
Neighbors first. Neighborhood. I mean, I think our Prime Minister is very right. Neighborhood first policy.
Mm.
Whether it's vaccines, whether it's aid, whether whatever we have to do, keep the neighborhood in control.
So,
right. We've had some measure of success in Bangladesh. Some measure of, I wouldn't say success. We come to some stability in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
Though the situation is not very great. Nepal is okay. Bhutan, we are fully there. Again, our wings are on fire. Coming back to the start point, and we have to douse our wings. That would be our challenge in the near future.
So I think one last question with regards to the neighborhood. I'm going to put two countries together, although I shouldn't do that because they're two sovereign nations. And you just mentioned about Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. It's been a up and down situation for India for a while now, wherein we make a move and the Chinese make a move, and then we make a move and the Chinese, and so on and so forth. And it was previously these two countries. Now, as we can see from this talk, that the Chinese are making a move all around us. One thing that I see is the cultural connect between India and Bangladesh, and India and Sri Lanka finds itself to be a big winning factor for India. At the end of it, money can only go a certain place. Beyond that, it's the values that actually carry a relationship forward. Do you see any possibility of India pulling out the cultural card to play with these, I won't say against, with these two countries to get them on their side?
Bangladesh, yes, it's working. The culture, the Bengali culture is working. And not only the Bengali culture, the value of your help during their war of liberation is working. The fact that you settle the border is working. I suppose after the Bengal elections are over and whoever is in power will work towards better understanding of how to share rivers, waters of Teesta. And we should, with the connectivity going and all that, things will work out well. And good equation with Bangladesh will help us resolve the Myanmar problem also. See, Bangladesh also has an issue with Myanmar. So if both of us get together, we can help Myanmar into stabilization. So that's a lot of positive things. Sri Lanka is two-way wall, if I may put it. Our culture is with us and against us. The Buddhist culture is with us, the Tamil culture is against us. You see, in Sri Lanka, the devolution of powers to the Tamils has not taken place. That still remains an issue. They're not moved forward. But we've helped them in that UN resolution and all that, by abstaining, voting against them in the UN. So it's in a 50-50 kind of a state of affairs.
Mm.
Right? So let us see where it goes. The Sri Lankans also know that, they can't take any action which is totally against India.
Mm.
That season is also fully over, notwithstanding the fact that Rajpakshas are back. And, I think, there is some traction you have and you don't have. Both. So we have to play it smart in Sri Lanka. In fact, Sri Lanka, if I may say, between Bangladesh and Sri Lanka is the bigger challenge.
Very interesting. So what I derive from
And also it depends on the kind of government which comes to power in Tamil Nadu.
Mm.
See, historically, the DMK has supported the Tamil cause. It's not that the AIDMK didn't support the Tamil cause, but if the AIDMK comes in power, their apron strings will be tied to the BJP. Right? That's the alliance which is happening here. Tomorrow's the election, right? And so they might not be that vociferous against the Sri Lankan government, whereas the DMK might be. So the regional issues, everything, we'll get clarity a little down the line. How to swing.
Interesting.
Because if you go back in time in the Sri Lankan problem, one of the reasons why we couldn't solve the Sri Lankan crisis at that point of time and why Sri Lanka went into chaos was the fact that the central government had one stance and the state government, the government of Tamil Nadu, another stance. And they were diametrically opposite to each other. And that's how we descended into chaos then.
Mm.
I mean, I'm going back to the time when MGR was alive.
Correct.
80s, late 80s, mid 80s. So we don't want to get there. So that's how it is.
So to conclude, I think what I derive from your talk, and this I'm going to say for all the other countries except Pakistan, is to make them realize that the Chinese hand of friendship comes with a carving knife. Pakistanis, no matter how hard you bang your head, it's pointless because Mr. U-turn is sitting there to turn around and do whatever he feels like, or whatever the deep state actually feels like for their own benefit, or Papa John's pizza for that matter. Thank you so much, sir, for this discussion. And I think it's an ever fluid situation. Let's wait and watch. I do foresee, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, some explosive situations coming across in India and its neighborhood, and it's worth the watch.
Yeah, I wouldn't say explosive. Interesting situations, yes.
Right, sir.
Right?
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening, and I'm going to catch up with you some other time with another issue.
Thanks a lot, and good evening, and have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Bye. Thank you.